Clyde 2, Monday morning, and delighted to be joined by a guest who's put together a brilliant book. If you're into the history of Glasgow, and perhaps maybe not the history you would think, then this should be right up your street. Glasgow, The Real Mean City is published by Black and White, and the author, Malcolm Archibald, is with me this morning. Good morning, Malcolm.
Good morning to you.
So Glasgow, The Real Mean City. Give us a bit of background. Firstly, as to what inspired you to start, because I know you've done a few books like this in the past, based on sort of your background and your interests.
I've done a few books on the history of parts of Scotland, mostly Dundee and the East Coast, but Glasgow has had an interest for me as well, partly because of my grandfather, who used to speak about it, and he was in the army for about 20 odd years, and he mentioned the behaviour of certain Glasgow soldiers in the First World War. He was a 22-year veteran, and he spoke of them being different from other soldiers in their own way. Had more sense of retribution, you could say.
Guys not to be messed with.
Exactly, yes.
Yes, because he was only 19, your grandfather, when he started serving, is that right?
Yeah, 1897, before the Boer War ended up after the First World War. So he saw quite a lot.
Glasgow's history is probably something that people, when it's mentioned, people think of beautiful Victorian buildings, they think of shipping, they think of trade to the Americas because of our position within the country and all that kind of stuff. But your book goes behind all that and uncovers a slightly more, if you like, sinister side to the history of our great city.
It's like the dark side of Glasgow in the 19th century, when Glasgow was undoubtedly a world city, probably one of the most important or innovative cities in the world for engineering, for civic pride, and for the progress of the city. But underneath that, there was very much a maelstrom of crime, of theft, robbery, garrotting, and occasional murder, just for good measure.
And it's almost, when you look at it from the perspective of the police, that a battle that's never ever going to be won. I
don't think it'll ever be won, but I think they're catching a good draw, you could say. When the Glasgow police started, there was no professional uniformed police force anywhere. So Glasgow began their first police force in the world, we think. And they certainly were battling some pretty nasty crimes, and successfully, because they chased the criminals from Glasgow into outlying cities and outlying towns, so they did a good job.
Now, the book covers various different, it's not all the bloody crimes and all that kind of stuff. We go into things like robberies and, the Paisley Union Bank, for instance, and jewel robberies and that sort of side of it as well.
I was quite surprised to find that there were international jewel robbers targeting Glasgow in the 19th century, because you expect the razor gangs and so forth. That's the reputation Glasgow has, perhaps unfairly. But there's also wealth as well. So you had international thieves coming from Europe into Glasgow to rob, like the Argyle Arcade Jewellers. And the bank was hit in 1811, which is fairly early. That was an international gang as well, part of the Scottish, part of the English. And that had a coach chase from Glasgow all the way down to London. And it was quite an interesting part of the time to live in, I would think.
Why do you think Glasgow was targeted in such a big way, probably a bigger way than many of us would think, Malcolm?
It was wealthy. Had the wealth from trade, you had the wealth from the engineering, you had the business wealth. The middle classes in Glasgow seemed to have a quite good life. You had the place in the city and had their villas out at the Clyde as well. They were involved in the shipping, you had international involvement as well. So I think Glasgow is known for its wealth as much as it's now known for the other side of things as well.
Malcolm, hang around. We'll chat some more about the book just after 7:30. Malcolm Archibald, author of Glasgow, The Real Mean City, my guest on Clyde 2 this Monday morning. Offers for all the info. My guest this morning is Malcolm Archibald. He's written a terrific new book called Glasgow, The Real Mean City, and we were chatting earlier on about some of the crime scene that were going on in Victorian Glasgow, Malcolm. Would you say that the city was targeted more by its own people because we're actually so proud of it, maybe more so than other Scottish cities or cities around the UK?
I think there's a possibility. I think there's more pride in Glasgow than in other cities, actually. I think the Glasgow people are more proud to be Glasgow, and the Edinburgh people are proud to be Edinburgh. I'm from Edinburgh. I think Glasgow's got an earthy pride, you could say.
It's almost like, certain people in certain parts of the country, when they're abroad, for example, will say, oh, we're Scottish, whereas people from Glasgow will tend to say, we're from Glasgow, first and foremost.
That could be the international part of the city as a major port, or the major port. and the major shipbuilding centre, you had immigrants coming into Glasgow as well as leaving from Glasgow. So I think it was an international city, a world city, not just a Scottish city, which possibly would have that effect on them. You can compare Glasgow to other cities throughout Europe or throughout the world, which would be difficult to do for other Scottish cities. They weren't for the size for a start, didn't have the engineering background for a start. And I think somebody mentioned to me that Glasgow is the most mentioned city of any British city in songs.
Wow. Should investigate that, actually. That's interesting.
Worthwhile, yeah.
We'll get the research team onto it, Malcolm. You do touch in the book, one of the certainly the more public, battles, if you like, which still goes on to this day. And in fact, it was highlighted at the beginning of last week after an Old Firm match, the Rangers and sort of Celtic, the kind of religious divide. But as you mentioned in the book, it actually goes back way, way beyond, the existence of both football clubs.
The first encounter I found was about 1820s, where an Orange Launch March got attacked by Catholics. But I think it goes beyond that to the 17th century as well, when the Covenanters were in Glasgow. So the roots go well back in time, well back before Rangers Celtic came into it. I think it's fair to blame it on football.
Well, it's almost just a sort of catalyst for it really now, isn't it? Whereas the underlyings have always kind of been there.
They've been there for centuries anyway. Mary Queen of Scots, she fought the Catholic Protestant battle in 1569 in Langside, near Hampden Park. So I don't think you can say it's football's fault, but the continuation of it into football makes it quite ugly just now. We
should point out that although your book is highlighting, the underlyings of a crime-filled city, it certainly wasn't all about that at that time. There were a lot of good things to celebrate at the time as well.
It was probably possibly the leading engineering city in the world, which is a massive thing. You also had the ticketing system for the lodging houses, trying to get things better for the people. The police were not just after crime, they were trying to help the social fabric of the city get better as well. It was a holistic thing. So you had an underlying trend of making things better for people by using the police, as well as trying just to end the crime.
Well, if you want to find out more, the book is available now, published by Black and White. You can find out more about 19th century Glasgow. And although we had lots of good things going on, as we mentioned, like the shipbuilding, the trade, the wealth, which was certainly there, establishing in the early 1800s the first police force in the country, dealing with all sorts of different things, robbery, riots, you name it, it's all there. And it's a thankless task, but Malcolm has brought it all to light, and you can find out more by getting the book, which is available now in paperback. Malcolm, thank you for your time.
Thank you for your time as well.
Good luck with the book and with all your future projects. And if you wish to put together a lighter side of Glasgow, we'll get you back and redress the balance sometime in the future.
Good idea. Thank you.
Malcolm, thank you very much. Malcolm Archibald, our guest this morning.